The Galactic Council Chamber was the size of a small moon, floating in the neutral zone between 3 galaxies. Representatives from 200 species sat in their designated sections, each one more alien than the last. Some breathed methane. Some were made of crystal. Some existed partially in other dimensions. But today, they all had one thing in common. They were afraid. At the center of the chamber, High Chancellor Korvax stood on the speaking platform. He was 3 meters tall, covered in silver scales, with 6 arms that moved independently as he spoke. "The humans have refused our final offer," he announced. His voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "They will not share their FTL technology. They will not reveal how their shields work. They will not explain how 12 human colonies have appeared in systems we thought were empty." Ambassador James Wilson sat alone in Earth's section. He was an older man, gray-haired, wearing a simple black suit. While other ambassadors had teams of dozens, James had come alone. He sipped coffee from a thermos and waited. "The humans claim these are trade secrets," Korvax continued. "But we know better. They are hiding military advantages. They are preparing for something. And we must act before they act against us." The Vorthan ambassador stood, his crystalline body chiming as he moved. "The humans have been in space for only 50 years. 50. My species has traveled the stars for 3,000 years. Yet human ships outrun ours. Human shields stop weapons that can crack planets. This is not natural development. They found something. Or stole something." James raised his hand. "May I speak?" "After the vote," Korvax said dismissively. "The motion before the council is simple. Declare war on Earth and its colonies. Force them to share their technology for the good of all species. All in favor?" One by one, lights began to turn red across the chamber. Red for war. Each species voting to attack Earth. The Cathari voted red. The Vorthans voted red. The Zilani, the Morvax, the Pentari, all red. James watched the lights change, still sipping his coffee. He pulled out a small device and typed something. "Ambassador Wilson," Korvax said with satisfaction as the last vote was counted. 198 species have voted for war. 2 abstained. Earth stands alone. You may speak your final words before we begin military action." James stood up slowly. He walked to the center platform, still carrying his coffee. "Final words," he said, smiling slightly. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" "You have something to say, human?" Korvax demanded. "Oh yes. Several things, actually." James took another sip of coffee. "First, you're right. We did find something. 50 years ago, when we achieved FTL, we found something in the void between stars. Something old. Something left behind." The chamber fell silent. "It was a message," James continued. "A warning, really. From a species that lived 1 billion years ago. They warned about this moment. The moment when younger races would unite against the newcomer. They said it happened to them. They barely survived." "Lies," Korvax snarled. "Maybe. But here's the thing. They left instructions. How to build shields that work on principles you haven't discovered. How to fold space in ways you can't detect. How to hide entire fleets in dimensions you don't know exist." James pulled out his device again. "I sent a message when you started voting. Want to know what it said?" He didn't wait for an answer. It said, "They voted for war. Execute Protocol 7. Every screen in the chamber suddenly turned on. They showed Earth, then Mars, then the 12 human colonies. And then, more. Hundreds of planets, thousands, all with human cities. All with human fleets. You thought we had 12 colonies," James said calmly. "We have 12,000. You thought we were alone. We've been building for 50 years in places you couldn't see. The images changed. Ships, not hundreds. Not thousands, millions, each one impossible. Some were the size of moons. Others were smaller than fighters, but readings showed they carried the firepower of dreadnoughts. But here's the real surprise, James said, finishing his coffee. We don't want war. We never did. This display? This is just to show you something important. He looked directly at Korvax. You voted for war against Earth. But Earth isn't what you thought it was. And humanity's answer to your vote isn't weapons or death. It's a question. Do you want to reconsider? The chamber erupted in chaos. And James Wilson stood in the center, calm as stone, waiting for their answer. 50 years ago, Captain David Park was just a test pilot. Earth's first FTL ship, the Explorer, was barely holding together with duct tape and prayers. The jump was supposed to take them to Alpha Centauri. It took them somewhere else. Captain, you need to see this, his navigator had said. Floating in the void between galaxies was a structure. Not a ship. Not a station. Something that hurt to look at, as if space itself had been folded into architecture. It was ancient beyond measure, but perfectly preserved. David had made the decision to board it. What they found inside changed everything got now. In the present, the Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Every representative was shouting, demanding answers. The images of millions of human ships, of thousands of hidden colonies, still filled their screens. High Chancellor Korvax slammed his 6 arms on the podium. Silence. The chamber quieted. These images are fake, he declared. Humanity is bluffing. They cannot have built this in 50 years. James Wilson smiled. You're right. We didn't build all of this in 50 years. We found the blueprints. Would you like to know what else we found? He pressed his device. The screens changed. They showed the same chamber the council was sitting in, but different, older, filled with species no one recognized. At the center, a being made of pure light spoke to assembled representatives. This is from 1 billion years ago, James said. The first ones faced the same vote you just made. 500 species voted to destroy them for developing too quickly, for being too different, for refusing to share their advantages. The recording continued. The first ones were given an ultimatum. Share everything or face annihilation. They shared, James said quietly. They gave away every secret, every technology. And within 10 years, those same species used those gifts to try to destroy them anyway. The first ones barely survived. They left this recording as a warning. Lies, the Vorthan ambassador chimed. Human propaganda, is it? A new voice spoke out above the chamber. Space rippled. A woman appeared on a command deck of a ship. Admiral Mary Stone, according to the nameplate on her uniform. Behind her, thousands of officers worked at stations that defied understanding. I'm Admiral Stone, commander of humanity's Ghost Fleet. Everything Ambassador Wilson has shown you is true. But he hasn't shown you everything. She gestured, and the view outside her ship became visible. The council members gasped that Earth was there. But not just one Earth. Hundreds of them, existing in parallel dimensions, occupying the same space, but in different realities. The first ones didn't just leave warnings, Admiral Stone said. They left instructions on how to hide, how to build between dimensions, how to create colonies in spaces you can't see because they exist in frequencies of reality you haven't discovered. Impossible, Korvax breathed. Really? Stone asked. Then explain this. Every council member's personal communication device activated simultaneously. Each showed the same thing. A human ship floating peacefully above their homeworld. Not attacking. Not threatening. Just ... there. We're above all 200 of your homeworlds right now, Stone said. We've been there for years. Watching. Protecting, actually. The Zelani. Do you remember the asteroid that mysteriously changed course 3 years ago? The one that would have hit your capital? You're welcome. The Zelani ambassador's 4 eyes widened in shock. The Morvax. That plague that suddenly stopped spreading through your colonies? We developed the cure and released it without you knowing. One by one, Stone listed dozens of disasters that had been secretly prevented by humanity. But why? Korvax asked, his arrogance cracking. Why help us while hiding from us? James answered, because the first one's message wasn't just a warning about you. It was a warning about what happens when fear drives decisions. You feared us because we advanced too quickly. We feared you because we knew you would fear us. So we hid and helped and prepared. Prepared for what? Korvax demanded. For the moment when you would vote for war. The first one said it always happens. The established powers always vote to destroy the newcomer. Always. In a million different galaxies, it's always the same story. Admiral Stone leaned forward. But this time, the newcomer was ready. We spent 50 years not preparing for war with you. We spent it preparing to show you that war was pointless. You could have conquered us. A Cathari ambassador said slowly. All of us? Without firing a shot. Yes, James said simply. But conquering is easy. Protecting is hard. We chose the harder path. Korvax's silver scales had turned pale. What do you want from us? Nothing, James replied. But we do have something to tell you. The first ones didn't leave because of the council. They left because something worse was coming. The screens changed again. This time, they showed the edge of the galaxy. Something was moving in the darkness between galaxies. Something vast. Something hungry. They're called the Devourers, James said. And they'll be here in less than 5 years. Asterisk. High Chancellor Korvax stood up, his 6 arms shaking with rage. This is a trick. An elaborate deception. You expect us to believe that humanity has been protecting us? That you have millions of ships? Prove it. James Wilson sighed. Very well. He pressed his device. Nothing seemed to happen. What did you do? Korvax demanded. I gave the order for Earth and all visible colonies to phase shift. Look at your screens. The council members turned to their displays. Where Earth had been, there was now empty space. Where Mars had been, nothing. Every known human colony had simply vanished. Bring them back. The Vorthan ambassador chimed in panic. In a moment, James said calmly. But first, watch this. The screens showed the Cathari fleet. 30,000 warships, pride of their empire. They were firing at the empty space where Earth had been. Their weapons hit nothing. Not shields. Not defensive screens. Simply nothing. Earth is still there, James explained. Just shifted 3 degrees out of phase with normal space. Your weapons, your sensors, even your physics can't touch it. We can do this with entire planets. We learned how from the first ones. Earth reappeared, unharmed, unbothered. Korvax's arrogance finally cracked completely. If you have such power, why hide? Why not rule? Let me show you something, James said. The screens changed again. They displayed the Council's own history. Every vote. Every war. Every species destroyed for refusing to share technology. The Alari, James read, refused to share their medical technology. Council vote, 187 to 13 for war. The Alari were exterminated. The Nexus Collective refused to share their computing advances. Vote, 195 to 5 for war. Genocide in 3 months. The Peaceful Wanderers. Their crime? They developed shields that the Council couldn't penetrate. Vote, 199 to 1 for war. No survivors. Name after name. Species after species. 47 civilizations destroyed by council votes. This is why we hid, James said quietly. Because we studied your history. We knew what you do to anyone different. Anyone who won't submit. Anyone who grows too fast. The chamber was silent. The weight of their own history crushed their arrogance. Admiral Stone appeared on screen again. We have a proposal. We'll share our basic FTL improvements. They'll increase your speeds by 300%. We'll share our medical advances. They'll double your species' lifespans. We'll share our agricultural technology. No one will ever starve again. In exchange for what? Korvax asked suspiciously. Reform the council. No more votes for war based on fear. No more destroying species for being different. Require 90% agreement for military action, not simple majority. This is blackmail. Korvax snarled. No, James said. This is necessity. Because something is coming that makes our differences meaningless. The screens showed deep space sensors. At the edge of the galaxy, something was happening. Stars were going dark. Not dying, just disappearing. The Devourers, Admiral Stone said. They consume everything. Matter, energy, space, time. They've devoured 12 galaxies that we know of. They're coming here. Why should we believe you? The Morvic representative asked. Because, James said, we're going to show you proof. Admiral Stone? Executing now, Stone replied. One of the human ghost. Fleet ships near the galactic edge fired a probe toward the darkness. The council watched as it accelerated beyond light speed, reaching the dark zone in seconds. The probe's feed came back. The council members recoiled in horror. Things moved in the darkness. Not ships. Not creatures. Geometries that shouldn't exist. Shapes that consumed space itself. Where they passed, reality ended. The probe lasted 7 seconds before being consumed. Not destroyed. Consumed. Its matter, its energy, even the information it contained, all devoured. They'll reach the outer council worlds in 4 years, Stone said. Earth has been preparing for 50 years. Every hidden colony is a fortress. Every ghost fleet ship is designed to fight them. But we can't do it alone. You knew, Korvax said slowly. You knew they were coming. That's why you hid. Why you built so many ships. Yes, James admitted. The first one's final message was a warning. They fought the Devourers and lost. They fled to another dimension rather than be consumed. But they left instructions on how to fight them. And you need us? Korvax asked. No, James said, and the council flinched. We could fight them alone. Maybe even win. But billions would die. Trillions if we fail. Together, united, we can minimize losses. Apart, fearful of each other, we all fall. Admiral Stone leaned into the camera. Choose quickly. Every minute you waste arguing is a minute less to prepare. And Chancellor Korvax, before you vote, know this. The first council worlds they'll reach are yours. Korvax's silver scales turned white. His empire was on the galaxy's edge. His people would be the first to face the Devourers. What must we do? He asked, his voice small, his arrogance finally, completely shattered. James Wilson walked to the center of the chamber. Every eye, every sensor, every form of perception was focused on him. The Devourers aren't a species, he began. They're not invaders. They're something worse. Their entropy given form. The universe trying to return to nothing. He activated his device. The screens showed complex equations, patterns that hurt to understand. The first ones discovered the truth. Every universe eventually creates them. When matter and energy reach a certain complexity, the Devourers manifest. They're not alive. They're not dead. They simply are. And they consume. Admiral Stone's image appeared beside the equations. We've run millions of simulations. Conventional weapons don't work. Nuclear weapons, antimatter, black holes, they eat them all. The only thing that affects them is this. She held up a strange device. It looked wrong, as if it existed in more dimensions than it should. Dimensional resonance weapons. They don't destroy the devourers. They push them back into the space between realities. The first ones designed them, but never had enough to win. So build more, the Zelani ambassador said. Share the design. We can't, James said simply. Watch, the screen showed a test. A Vorthan volunteer, touching the weapon. The moment his crystalline hand made contact, he screamed. His body began to shift, phase, existing in multiple dimensions at once. After 3 seconds, he vanished. Not dead, gone, existing everywhere and nowhere. The weapons require human neural patterns, Stone explained. Our brains evolved differently. We can handle the dimensional shifting. Any other species that tries. That happens, you're lying. Korvax accused. You want to keep the weapons for yourself. I wish we were lying, James said sadly. But we found the first one's bodies. They tried to modify themselves to use the weapons. It killed them. All of them. That's why they fled instead of fighting. The Cathari ambassador stood. Then we're doomed. If only humans can use these weapons, and the devourers are coming ... No, Admiral Stone interrupted. We have a solution. We can't share the weapons, but we can be the weapons. Humanity offers to stand as the galaxy's shield. We'll fight the devourers. All we ask is that you don't fight us. You want us to trust you with our survival? Korvax asked. You trusted us when you didn't know we existed, James pointed out. We've been protecting you for decades. The only difference now is you know about it. The chamber fell silent. Then a small voice spoke. It was the ambassador from Proxima, one of the youngest species in the council. Show us, she said. Show us you can fight them. James nodded. Admiral Stone, Demonstration Protocol 7. At the galaxy's edge, a single ghost fleet ship moved toward the darkness. The council watched as it approached the zone where stars had vanished. The devourers sensed it. They moved toward the ship, geometries of nothing that deleted space as they passed. The ship fired. Reality screamed. The weapon didn't shoot energy or matter. It shot existence itself. Where it hit, the devourers were pushed back, forced into spaces between spaces. For a moment, a star reappeared, freed from their consumption dot. Then more devourers came. Hundreds, thousands. A single ship retreated, but it had proven something. They can be fought, Stone said. But it takes everything we have. One ship can hold them for minutes. Our million ships might hold them for years. But we need time to build more. To train more humans. To prepare. What about Earth's children? A Morvic representative asked. Can they use these weapons? Yes, James said. But we need to train them. And we need facilities throughout the galaxy. Defensive lines. Supply bases. The cooperation of every species. Korvax looked around the chamber. His arrogance was gone, replaced by fear and something else. Respect. You could have conquered us, he said to James. You could have ruled the galaxy. Instead, you're offering to die for us. Not die, James corrected. Live together. The first ones made a mistake. They tried to fight alone. They kept secrets. They maintained divisions. We won't repeat their error. Admiral Stone added, we've already begun training volunteers. Humans from every colony are joining the Ghost Fleet. But we need more. We need unity. Real unity, not just votes in politics. How many devourers are there? Korvax asked. Best estimate? Stone replied. Billions. They've been consuming galaxies for millions of years, growing, multiplying, learning. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. But, James said, raising his voice, the first ones held them off for 1,000 years with inferior technology. We have their knowledge, plus our own innovations. We can win. Not easily. Not without cost. But we can win. What do you need from us? Korvax asked. Everything, James said simply. Resources, bases, support, and most importantly, stop fighting each other. Every ship destroyed in petty conflicts is one less ship to fight the real enemy. The vote was called. This time, not for war, but for unity. For survival. One by one, the lights turned green. Asterisk, the vote was unanimous. 200 green lights. For the first time in the Council's 10,000-year history, every species agreed on something. High Chancellor Korvax stood, his silver scales now shifting to blue, the color of humility among his people. The Galactic Council accepts humanity's protection. What happens now? James Wilson smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Now we show you what unity really means. He pressed his device. Across the galaxy, things began to change. The millions of human ships in hidden dimensions phase shifted into normal space. But they didn't appear as conquerors. They appeared at shipping lanes, trade routes, defensive positions. Each one broadcasting the same message in every language. We stand guard. Admiral Stone's image was replaced by dozens of humans. Young and old. Men and women. All wearing the same simple uniform. These are the shepherds, James explained. Humans who volunteered to spend their lives protecting specific species. Each of your worlds will have 100 human ships assigned to it. Not to control. To shield. The Vorthan ambassador chimed. You're spreading your forces. If the Devourers attack en masse, they will, Stone interrupted, reappearing. But we've learned something from Earth's history. Sometimes the best defense isn't a wall. It's a web. Every ship is connected. Every shepherd linked. When one is attacked, all respond. 3 months passed. The galaxy transformed. On Cathari Prime, human engineers worked alongside crystalline builders, constructing dimensional shields around cities. Children played together, human and Cathari, learning each other's languages. On the Morvac colonies, human medical teams shared treatments that ended diseases that had plagued them for centuries. Not the dimensional weapons. Those remained human only. But everything else was shared freely. Even Korvax's empire changed. The mighty war fleets that had conquered dozens of species were retrofitted with human shields. Their weapons were modified to fight Devourers instead of neighbors. Then the day came. The Devourers reached the first inhabited system. It was a small colony. 3 million beings. The Yuli, a species that had only achieved spaceflight 20 years ago. Under the old council, they would have been alone. Expendable. Not anymore. The moment the Devourers appeared, 10,000 human ships phase shifted into the system. The shepherds had come. The battle was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The Devourers deleted space. The humans restored it. The Devourers consumed matter. The humans pushed them into dimensional pockets. Reality itself became a battlefield. For 7 hours, they fought. The galaxy watched, every species holding their breath. When it ended, the Devourers were gone. Pushed back. The colony was damaged, but alive. Of the 10,000 human ships, 8,000 survived. But the victory came with a revelation. In the council chamber, James stood before the assembled species again. But this time, he looked older. Tired. We won the first battle, he said. But we learned something. The Devourers aren't just consuming randomly. They're following a pattern. The same pattern the first ones followed when they spread through the galaxy. What do you mean? Korvax asked. James said slowly. we know why the first ones really left, and why they left their technology for us to find. The screens showed a DNA comparison. First ones, humans, they were nearly identical. We are the first ones, James revealed. Or rather, we're what they became. They didn't flee to another dimension to escape. They fled to evolve. They shed their advanced forms, became primitive again, started over on a hidden world, Earth. The chamber erupted in shock. They knew the Devourers would follow them eventually, James continued. So they left themselves us instructions. How to fight. How to win. But most importantly, how to unite others. Because they learned that alone, even the most advanced species falls. Together, even primitives can stand. Admiral Stone added, the Devourers aren't just entropy. They're a test. A universe's way of forcing species to work together or perish. The first ones failed that test fighting alone. Humanity won't. 1 year later, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Council had become the Unity. Species that had been enemies for millennia now shared worlds. Human children grew up alongside every other species, all training to be shepherds. The Devourers still came, wave after wave. But each time, the Unity stood firm. Human ships with their dimensional weapons. Council fleets with their numbers. Working as one dot in Earth's capital, a monument was erected. It showed a human child and a Korvax child holding hands, looking at the stars. The inscription read, they voted for war. We answered with unity. They expected arrogance. We gave them humility. In our darkest hour, we found our brightest light, each other. James Wilson, now old and gray, stood before the monument with Korvax, who had become his closest friend. Do you think we'll win? Korvax asked. We already have, James replied. The moment we stopped fearing each other and started protecting each other, we won. The Devourers are just the universe's way of making sure we remember that lesson. Above them, the stars shone bright. Human ships and council vessels flew side by side. The vote for war had become a choice for unity. And humanity's answer had saved them all. Asterisk.